virtually there. Hi, Maya.
Hi, Maya.
That's pretty good, actually, having that's much better than just a phone, somebody on the phone, so it's good.
Should we move you down over here?
Yeah, maybe bring it around.
We're bringing it into the center.
What's that?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
You're being moved.
Oh,
It's all right. There we
it's
go.
got knocked over.
This might be a little jarring.
Quite.
Maybe we could get one of those things that go that move around, and then she could walk around the room with thing over our shoulders.
Okay, can you see okay?
Welcome,
I
Maya.
can, that's perfect, thank you.
Perhaps for the new members, it would be good to have a very brief introduction and say what attracted you to this role and what your interests are.
Sure. So hi everybody. Looking forward to meeting you all in person next time. I can assure you I'm not actually a floating head. I do have a body. So my name is Maya Tuzmaki and I work for the Michael Smith Foundation for Health Research, which is based in Vancouver, BC. So we are the province's health research funder. So I come from having a background in research myself, but more broadly working in strategic planning, evaluation, and monitoring, program development, all those things. And my partner and I are recently new arrivals to Bowen Island. We were moving in officially on April 1st. Very excited. And I was attracted to this committee because I've been involved in different kinds of business ventures in the past, and was really excited to be able to get into the community and contribute, and thought it would be a great way to meet people as well. So very excited to be here and to meet you all in person, hopefully at the next meeting.
Cool.
Okay.
Thanks a lot. Welcome, Maya.
Thank you.
Ed, you're the new boy.
Yes, I'm a retread. Most of you know me from the 2 years I spent on EDC, what, 2 years ago? 3 years ago, and was very instrumental in the Bowen branding research. I'm back because there's some things coming together on the island that are kind of exciting. Different organizations are beginning to see in their research similar things. I think there's a sense of synergy happening, and so I decided to come back. So good to be here.
Welcome
Love
back,
this
Ed. And perhaps we could just, for the benefit of Maya, just introduce ourselves. Maya, we met on FaceTime, so you know a little bit about me. Maureen is council representative.
I'm Maya.
Maureen Nicholson. She's an elected official on the council, and we're a subcommittee of the council. Robin, perhaps you can introduce yourself.
I don't know if you can see me.
Can you see Robin?
I don't think so. Hi.
Oh,
I'll move you back again.
Yeah, sorry. Hello. Yeah, my name's Robin. I'm a registered architect and also involved in other stuff on Bowen, especially around affordable housing initiatives and community engagement.
Rod?
Rod Marsh, and I have a paint and drywall contracting business on Bowen. And this is my second year on the EDC, and previously I was part of the board of directors for the Chamber of Commerce, and worked with Maureen and Barry here quite a bit on the business licensing task force last year. That was sort of my main focus with the EDC. I'm looking forward to something new this year.
Cool.
and nicely done. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Barry Penn. This is going into my second year on the EDC. We were new back to Bowen 2.5 years ago. Used to live on the island 19 years ago and left. I'm a retired accountant and former multi-business owner, and like you, hoping to make a contribution somewhere.
Hi, I'm Jacqueline Massey. I'm the Executive Director of the Bowen Island Arts Council. And I think am I the only original member of the first Economic Development Committee for the municipality. So I was vice chair for a number of years. I think, when was it established? Does anybody have
7 years ago.
7 years ago, oh my. All right, I've been here a while. So yeah, looking forward to getting to know you better. We just mentioned the Arts Council's always had a strong focused towards economic development, not just for artists, but for the entire community.
Cool.
I'm Steph. I'm the Economic Development Committee staff liaison with the municipality.
Cool. And we have a couple of people. Do we?
Yes, on the phone. Sure, I'll introduce myself first.
Yeah.
I'm Cheryl McLean with the Ministry of Forest Lands, Natural Resource Operations and Rural Development. And for the folks that are new to the committee, welcome. And our ministry, I'm specifically in a division called Rural Development, Lands and Innovation, and within a branch called Regional Economic Operations. So my colleague Wendy and I, who I'll be introducing to you to this morning, our function is to support rural communities in British Columbia related to economic development, primarily related to business retention and expansion, but supporting your goals and priorities and helping to move those forward. And on that note, Wendy, are you on the line?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Cheryl. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
But I look forward to meeting all of you tonight. I am a colleague and I work with Cheryl. I'm the regional manager for the Lower Mainland, which includes Bowen Island.
Okay, Wendy, you're significantly quieter than Cheryl. Is there a microphone issue? Welcome. Hello. Sorry.
I think some of the technology for Wendy in terms of the public service hasn't been set up
Okay.
yet, so she might be calling in from her phone.
Okay.
So that could be why and maybe I'm just louder. But I think it could be a bit of a technology issue on our end, as this is Wendy's first week on the job with the public service, but Wendy has a wealth of experience related to economic development, investment attraction, and tourism development that she'll be bringing in. I think she'll be able to add value to Bowen Island, and we look forward to setting up a familiarization tour for Wendy in the near future, and both she and I will come over to Bowen. And hopefully someone can give us a tour and talk about the ECDEV priorities and meet some folks in person.
Right.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wendy, where are you based?
I am based in Vancouver. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Perfect.
that's excellent. So
And
you're
where-
nearby.
And Cheryl, you're in Victoria?
Cheryl, I'm actually based in Nanaimo,
Oh.
so most of our team is sprinkled out and about, but probably faster for Wendy to get to than myself, actually. I think I'm 2 ferries away.
Cool. So one of you will be, usually it'll be one of you, but today we've got both of you, is that right?
Yeah, so I was, it's Cheryl here, I was the interim regional manager assigned to support Bowen Island while we were in the midst of recruiting a new manager. So from this point forward, Wendy will be providing assistance to Bowen Island, but in terms of the next 2 to 3 months for a transition, I'll be working with Wendy to ensure that that transition is smooth.
Perfect.
Perfect, that's fantastic. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, well, thanks, welcome everyone. I don't really have any remarks to say, so let's just press on. Approval of the agenda.
So we have one lead item, which is the Community Economic Development presentation that Lindsay presented in February 2017.
Well, yeah, that's really, it's something that was referenced in the annual report, which I think
It's not for
should
the
be.
meeting, it's just a handout.
Well, I think it could go, we'll come to that.
Okay.
I think it could be added to the package that we just announced. Somebody like to propose that we adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Okay. Adoption of the minutes of the last meeting, February the 16th. Oh. Everyone agree on the
All in
agenda?
favor?
Yeah, all in favor, all passed. The adoption of the minutes, last meeting.
So moved.
Was there, are the minutes right here?
Yes.
There was something, a date that stood out. It was referring to a March 18th, 2018 meeting. I think it's or March 16th, which is today,
Oh,
in the last minutes. Does that,
that may have been fixed.
Was there one about an action item or something? Yeah, is it on the first page under the date, oh, sorry, not the first page, page 6 of 1331? there's action items, and right at the bottom it says review action items of 2017, provide the list of incomplete tasks to EDC meeting on March 16th, 2018.
Yeah.
Is it that one?
Yeah.
I think it was an action item to be addressed today.
Oh, okay.
Is-
Is that what it was?
I think so, because I noticed that as well, but I thought, oh no, it's referring to today's meeting.
Okay, good.
Oh, you guys are reading, I love it.
Yeah, well done.
So moved.
Moved.
Meeting minutes.
Anybody want to second that?
Robin?
Robin, all in favour? Okay, public comments? No, I guess, because nobody here. So, election of a vice chair. Who's currently vice chair? You were vice chair.
There hasn't been a vice chair for at least a couple of years. When you and Chris took on the role of co-chair, I
Right.
believe that position was dropped.
Okay.
So it hasn't been a number of years.
Okay, well, I'd like to propose that Ed be suggested as the vice chair, just mainly because he's been here the longest time and he's got some links to the history of the meeting before my time. But I think it could be open to us to have two vice chairs if we wanted to do. That may be a good idea if somebody else is interested in doing it. I don't think it's a particularly onerous job, but it's nice to have a backup if I happen to be away or something like that. As you know, I last year was reluctant to take on the chair because I really didn't have time. Chris and I did it together, but now I've sort of accepted my fate for another year.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. But if there's anybody interested in being a second vice chair, or does anybody else want to throw their hat into the ring and
Well,
fight it out?
I guess strictly on the notion that I probably can attend all the meetings.
Yeah.
If it was necessary for me to chair a meeting, from that capacity, I'd be fine to be. And as you suggested, maybe if we want to have two vice chairs, that's fine too. Because when I think about being vice chair as the pathway to becoming chairman next year, that's maybe not as. I just want to be clear that that's not really what I'm thinking. I'm thinking I probably can attend most of the meetings and assist in chairing if need be.
And I want to reiterate, that's definitely not what I'm thinking.
Yeah. I don't think
Nice that chair.
I don't think there's been any suggestion that if you're vice chair one year, you become chair the next year. That's not. I didn't know.
That's not the route you took.
Is that Maureen?
No, it's not mandatory rep. I'd just like to move the recommendation that the Economic Development Committee elect Rod Marsh and Ed Walkman as co-vice chairs.
I will second that.
Yeah.
Do you accept the nomination?
Mm-hmm.
All those in favor? Okay.
Thank you.
Well done.
Appreciate that.
Thank you, Ed.
Thanks for stepping up.
Boy, the work's going to pile on you guys now.
It just keeps coming.
Sure, he's gonna kill you.
I know.
It's a co-vice.
So, action items, which is really, I think, in just a very small point, but I think in future maybe that should come after the adoption of the minutes because it just makes sense to have the action items from the minutes.
It did come after the adoption, just we gotta get a vice chair organized.
Before we can consider the action. All right, the action items. So,
Okay.
So it's page 19.
There they are, EDC action ideas.
And Cheryl and Wendy, do you have all of this material?
Hi, it's Wendy. So I do have the agenda items that
You know what, can I do the action items from last meeting first, which I don't know if I gave you the tax, so we'll go through the minutes for that. So in the minutes, page 12, send invitation to EDC members for monthly social. John, yes.
Yes. We held it,
You held it, how was it? Oh,
It was really nice, actually. No.
Good. Constructive.
Yeah.
Page 13, bottom, review the action items and make a list of incomplete tasks. I did that. That will come up. Page 14, send feedback regarding the draft annual report. Thank you, Maureen. Page 15, clarify costing, summit costing, report back to the committee. I believe I sent you an email with the adjusted numbers on that.
Thanks, Deb.
Okay, draft a letter to Bowen restaurant owners and send to EDC members for review. Thank you, Michelle and Rod, I think, for your feedback, Jackie, on that. That went to the business owners. It's an item later. Stakeholder emails, thank you, Maureen. Add to the contact list, yes. Create a doodle poll for breakfast, yes, but that will need to be reconsidered. Page 16. We'll talk about subcommittees later in the meeting. Michelle, consult with the BRE and find out what these members are willing to commit to do. That will need to be addressed next month. Email Councillor Kale regarding possibility of disbanding the Internet Access Task Force. I did that, and he is absolutely in favor of disbanding that subcommittee. So we're free of that. Orientation binders, those have been sent digitally, and we have paper copies in the back office. Nobody said they wanted one. Can review those later. I might wait till Maya's in the room for that review.
Makes sense.
Maya, did you get an orientation binder? Yes, okay.
Did we mute her?
And it's show here, I forwarded that to Wendy as well for her review.
Did we mute
Thank you very much.
We can't hear you.
Yes, I did this to you, thank you.
I think we've muted her.
Oh, yeah.
She muted herself, I think.
Okay,
Oh, yeah, we hear you now.
Okay,
Sorry, yeah, I muted myself while the conversation is happening, so that there's no background noise.
Yeah.
thank you.
She's not muting us.
Provide a refresher on council needs municipal processes. Again, I think we might wait till, I can do that today. if you'd like. Okay, so that was for last meeting. Good job. So then the next one is just a review of 2017. I went through and culled the year's worth of actions and to see what's remaining and if there's anything we want to just forget about or follow up on. So page 19, follow up on BCEDA submission with further updates regarding business research, resident service, etc. That was Chris. Is that coming around again next year, the BCEDA?
Yes, it is. I'm not sure what this relates to, though. It's like over a year ago.
Okay, forget it. This is just, don't worry about it. Create a written proposal for an economist, Sherry and Chris. That was February 10th meeting.
I'm thinking that might be sort of superseded now that we're moving towards the community economic
Okay.
development model. I'm thinking that's, not
Okay.
necessary.
Have a deeper discussion about the concept of economic gardening with Lindsay Bishop and report back to the BRE in this, and then the EDC, that's Michelle.
Economic garden.
Well, that's really the economic development, community economic development thing too.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. And this is just a list of the BRE priorities that were identified. April 7th, write a strategy document that builds on some of the priorities identified in the 2016 annual
No
report.
recollection of agreeing to do that. And
Forget
so
about
I
it?
didn't do it.
Okay, create a budget for the local economy summit.
It's actually done.
That's complete.
Okay. Top of page 20, May 5th. Follow up with a phone call to MyTax representative. So there was a conference call with MyTax, and
What's my tax again?
it's a funding organization affiliated with university. Cheryl, do you know about MyTax?
Yes, so it's a federally funded initiative where you can have post-secondaries and PhDs assigned to assist with industry development on the research side.
So do we want to keep that?
I think that's a key.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that later. Okay. Reach out to the Squamish branch of Community Futures regarding funding opportunities. Chris.
No idea.
Bye-bye. I feel like we're cleaning house here. June 9th, share the EDC's concerns regarding visitors with tourism Bowen Island. Michelle. So this is going to be an ongoing
Yes.
initiative. Okay. Attend the Metro Parks meeting on behalf of the EDC. Chris.
Chris did that.
Thank you, Chris.
So what's important here for those who are just joining the committee is that these are the outstanding items. There might have been 12 items on the list and 2 that are remaining that are making it onto this list. So 2017 was not a long list of things we didn't do.
Just to be clear, a lot of grammar. So just, these are action items, but applying to work with Susan Luck and Suki Crew with the Ministry of Social Development. Hire someone, yeah. Is that
That's superseded.
Talk about it.
okay? Brand implementation strategies, for example, reaching out to businesses, undercurrent articles, banners, that's the branding working group.
I don't think much of that.
No. In fact, our last branding working group meeting was,
A year ago.
yeah, a year ago.
So keep that,
Yeah, let's keep that.
okay? So I've got 2 keeps here,
So
the My Tax and the branding ideas. July 7th. Okay, so these are for Lindsay, so maybe you guys can, the ministry people can speak to them. Answer questions on the spreadsheet provided that have not been answered by the information provided on the community website. Okay, that's a little context.
So what that relates to is the business licensing work, and Lindsay did provide feedback on that, so it's done.
Tick.
And I'm not sure if Lindsay shared that information with Lanceville, and the reason for sharing it with Lanceville was that the CEO in Lanceville was considering implementing a business licensing program.
Wendy, are you interested in sharing our licensing information with Lanceville?
It's Cheryl here. With your permission, happy to share it with Lanceville. Also had shared some public documents with Salt Spring Island and advised that Bowen Island was going down this path, and they may, so Salt Spring's actually interested in connecting with you as well, as they don't have a business.
Wonderful.
So it should inspire some others, so thank you for that.
Cheryl, do they have the option of doing that, given that they're not a municipality?
They're exploring the pathway to do that through the regional districts,
Okay.
and so it's put forward for consideration. It's not on their work plan at this point for this year, so they're looking at, you know, what's the art of the possible.
Thank you.
But to your point, yes, they're not a municipality, so there's some challenges there.
Craft a job description for a part-time consultant that focuses on deliverables for committee members' consideration. This did not happen.
I think that'll come up towards the end of this year.
So I'm just gonna cross it off.
Yeah.
It'll bring itself up if it needs to. April 11th, connect with Shana regarding business emergency
Oh,
insurance.
yeah, I did send an email and didn't get a reply, so I'll.
Do you want me to keep that then?
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
follow up.
Good, thank you. Fair ideas for EDC priorities, for strategic planning, I think that's done. Plan a workshop session regarding housing and tourism, Chris and Robin.
I think
Well,
we
that was the kind of
decided not to do anything standalone, and it got incorporated into
Okay.
the larger business summit, so,
Okay,
yeah.
good. Collaborate with Chris in drafting a letter which forms an economic argument against logging.
I feel like that was
Joanne and
completed.
Shanna.
I think
It kind of went through to
I think that was
David,
done.
didn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
Is there, Maureen, has there been an official statement or proclamation from council about
logging.
logging in terms of the economy? I know that the Defender Forest reported in, or a week ago, 2 weeks ago.
There's been nothing recent from council,
Okay.
but there certainly was plenty that went forward to BC Timber Sales and to Minister Donaldson, and also to Minister Heyman on the logging issue and its economic impacts. At this point, council isn't taking any further steps. We're waiting to see.
So that's an official position right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No to industrial scale logging on Bowen Island.
Okay.
Email input to John Dowler regarding logging. Chris?
Yeah.
Goodbye. Discussed 20 business representatives.
That's going to come up in the tourism.
Okay, so I'm going to keep that as, yeah. October, discussed opportunities in high-speed internet, incentive that would attract tech companies to the island.
Well, I think that's just until we get the things.
Okay.
I feel like that could tie into the
Yeah.
Smart City Challenge that's happening right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I just saw that come out, and something that occurred to me, and I don't know if we want to take this on, I think the deadline is at the end of this month for ideas. Anyways, so it might not happen, but I thought one thing we could maybe do is like host an event and say, hey, people, like come and brainstorm your ideas or something for the Smart City Challenge. But
Okay.
yeah, there might just not be time given the deadline, but that's what I feel that might kind of,
Yeah,
even though I know it
and
wasn't
then-
relevant to that, that actually
Yeah.
is kind of what's happening now.
So Councillor Mason is
Yeah.
enthusiastic about, and so there'll be a 20-minute session, 20-minute agenda item on the BIMTAC agenda on April 3rd, if you want to turn that on or attend.
The deadline is March 30th.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It's really fast. And is that just for ideas to go to municipality, right? And then there's or I haven't looked at it closely. I just kind of saw the thing and saw the deadline. Or is that the like deadline to go to the smart city? We don't know. Okay.
I don't know.
Why don't
We
we?
might know.
I'm kind of keen to follow up. So why don't I follow up on that and with Melanie
Okay.
and see if there's any way to link us and them and make something happen.
Yeah, it is open to us. They've,
Yeah.
I think they're well along on they're working on an app for visitors to the island to find locations or
Oh,
business or whatever.
I think
but-
that's different from what we're talking about, but somebody's working on an app for the island?
Yeah, that's their smart city proposal.
Oh, cool, okay.
Yeah.
So the submission
Great.
date to the government is April 24th.
Okay.
So there's time.
So I'm sorry, who is
Melanie
creating that
Mason.
proposal? Oh, okay.
And
With
she had reached
Renewable?
out to me and asked if I wanted to be involved, and I said, I'll listen, and I sent out the link to that webinar that they did. And then I got back to her and I said, would you like us as a group to get involved? And I didn't hear anything further.
Melanie, for me? Well, do you want to loop Barry in on that then, Robin?
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to include him. She will be happy to hear from you. And check out the BIMTech agenda on the committee's page.
Okay.
There's information there, including other people who are involved.
So can you just summarize what this is, Barry? Is it a competition or is it
Yes, there actually was a second webinar which I didn't attend, and I think it was more to how to design a proposal to submit a idea put forward, and that's what they've worked on. But
So I think essentially there's money available. It's a
So
little
it's competing-
competition.
It's competing for funds.
It's for smaller
Funds,
cities,
yeah.
and you can put an idea forward and get, I can't remember what the number is, like $5,000 or 10, there's some amount of money
Right.
that, oh no, it's like a big
It's
pot,
like
isn't it?
5 million.
It's 5 million that people are, sorry.
Wow.
There was a 5 in there, missing a few zeros. So it's small communities can come up with ideas and compete for this big pot of money and, yeah, put proposals forward.
Is this federal funds?
So I don't remember. Federal? Yeah, provincial.
All right, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Wonderful.
There'll be a lot of competition for that.
yes, and the app is one creative way of going outside that we don't have high-speed internet.
Yeah.
But I'm sure a lot of the proposals will be based on internet or broadband technology.
Yeah.
That's the idea. Yeah.
Okay, so refer the buy local to Denise Lawson and Mary Hay.
Who is Marie?
Marie Hay,
Sorry.
Is that Marie May?
May, Marie Hay,
N-E-Y.
that's right,
Oh.
N-E-Y-S. I don't know if that was done.
I don't know what the short-term rentals thing is. Oh, here.
Cheryl here. I know in February the province put on a, not our ministry, but Citizen Services, I believe, a Smart Communities webinar for rural communities, and I have received the archived webinar. Steph, I can forward that to you. It's not for the competition per se, but it's about the framework, and it might be something for it's the framework for consideration to reinvigorate rural communities' participation in a digital economy. And I found it very informative, and because it's archived, folks could then review it at when time permits.
Wonderful, thank
Steph, I
you.
can send that your way if that would be
Yeah,
helpful.
yeah, thank you.
Valuable, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good, okay, well, that's it. Well, I think we did, there wasn't too much outstanding actually. Quite good. Review of status of unknown action items.
That was that.
Business arising from the annual report is in the package, and I think you did this stuff.
Yes.
And I think you did a really good job.
Thank
I think it's really well done. So I would just have one suggestion, and that is that in this document, somewhere, I forget where it is now, there is a reference to a presentation that Lindsay gave to us a little while ago.
Okay, page 25, bottom right.
Yeah. And that's, I asked Stephanie if she would print that up, because it is this some very concise but useful summary about what community economic development is about. And it even has on the second to last page, on the third to last page, a very quick summary of the kinds of things that would be included in the community economic development. And I think it would be useful to attach this to the annual report, because when we come on to the plan for this year, it's pretty brief, and if we just present it, I mean, we're sort of assuming that the council knows something about what community economic development is about, because what we're saying in the work plan is that we're going to develop community economic development. So I think this will just help them to understand what we're about.
Okay, Wendy and Cheryl, I'm just sending it to you right now digitally. You should be in your email.
Great, thanks.
I don't think you should assume that council will know what community economic development means, so I think this is a good idea.
Yes.
Okay. All right, let's add that.
Okay, so add that to the resolution.
So there's a resolution to say that we should submit the annual report. Does somebody want to propose that? Ed, somebody second. Maureen? Everybody in favour? Okay. And so then the work plan and budget, which really should go in at the same time, or they will go at the same time, right? Is the next document. Anybody got any comments on that?
Well, I was just curious, our budget has already gone forward, has it not? Our budget ask? Is it not included in the?
Our ask?
Yeah.
No, it'll be on the next council agenda. Just, I've had informal conversations with
Okay,
so.
but have they not completed? They're still working on the budget, is that?
The budget has yet to be approved by council, but this should have been given over to Raj for part
He has
of his
it.
work. So as long as he has it, he will have built it in, and then it's subject to final approval.
Right, because that would be my question. And I mean, there's a presentation of the budget to the community, so doesn't that mean it's completed?
Now,
Oh, it's a draft.
what has happened, there were 2 sessions this week, and it was budget consultation with the community, not the presentation of something that was final approved by council.
I misunderstood. Thank you.
My only concern is that Ron, sorry, go ahead.
No, keep going on. That question.
Well,
again.
my only concern was that, they've got a new CFO who's not got any background in this, and who may look at this and go, well, this is, what is this all about? Will he have some understanding of the work we do?
I would think so.
Yeah.
He's been briefed.
Good.
Yeah.
Oh, good, yes.
I missed the years. We've been having rollovers from previous budget years. Did we spend all 24,000?
No.
This is moving.
This is the the famous moving budget? Okay.
It is.
Thank you.
I think we're gonna spend it this year though.
Give it a
We're
shot.
going to really try.
Okay.
So there is a question though, do we have enough context for it? And I guess I would ask Councillor Nicholson, you know, is this, I mean, it's a little bit light on content in terms of
It's no
intention.
lighter than in the past.
Okay.
It's actually more detailed than in the past in terms of the budget.
Okay.
So I'm fine with that.
We have more explanation of what our, why we had set out the goals that we had, but that's fine. And of course, we do have the annual report, which kind of leads up to.
And I think within this, this idea of the community economic development, there's a whole lot of stuff we are doing that we're going to come on to next. So it's not like we're sitting on it and not doing anything. We're actually doing it now. We're just looking at how is it going to, how can we more enshrine it going forward in official policies. That everybody's understanding. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So does somebody want to propose that we put this in with the council?
I move that we
Join?
present our work plan to council.
Second. Ed? Everybody fair?
I don't know that you'll have to present
And I'll
it.
present it,
Okay.
so we will submit it to
Submit.
council for approval.
2018 EDC Business Summit. Last time the summit was in January. And what it was, Maya, is that we had I think 60 business owners, something like that, come to a session at a venue on the island, and we made presentations, sort of informational presentations. Robin did something about business continuity in the case of
Emergency planning.
emergency planning. There was a presentation by Maureen about and the guys, yeah, about business licensing recommendations, which have now been submitted to council and now been worked out. And then there was a session where we sort of more free-flowing sections where we asked business owners what were their areas of concern, and that was done in a very sort of, well, free-flowing would be the right way. There was various tables, people wrote on pieces of paper and post-its, etc., etc. So we wanted to try to capture that, which Steph had the thankless task of taking all those post-its and scribblings on sheets of paper and doodles,
No.
wasn't you?
No, I couldn't. I got help. So,
Okay.
yeah.
You made it happen.
Anyway,
Yeah.
you made it happen. So somebody made it happen, and the kind of summary of the scribblings was in these pages here, which really don't mean a great deal in terms of, there's nothing actionable about it at all. There's nothing you could really do with this. It's like, there's probably enough ideas to keep us going for 50 years, but we don't know what they are, they're not worked out or anything like that. So it was suggested at the last meeting, I think, that we should make a presentation to council, sort of summarising the feeling of the meeting. No, there was no minutes taken, there was nothing really summarised at all.
I have this in addition, which is not on the agenda because again, it's quite rough. I just haven't been able to get to cleaning it up, and that is your presentation, just what was happening in the evening, questions that were asked, and each table group. So I apologize for how rough this all is. It just is the only thing I could get to you. I just don't have
Well, I think,
plus I think more input would be good.
so I think what I would like to suggest is that it would be great if we could get even 10 minutes on council's agenda in the next couple of months to just go there and give them the essence of what the business community was saying. And it was mostly around housing and the need for housing and the effects that the lack of housing is having on their business because they can't hire people. But I think it would be more effective in council if we were there and giving council this message in person. And whether we need a summary or not, I'm not quite sure. Maybe it is just a 5 or 10 minute session where one or two of us go and give them the message. What do you think, Maureen? You're one of the people hearing it.
I think council's heard that message.
Yeah.
So I think you need to do more than that. And it may be, just a broader report on the summit and its value. And if in the meantime you've had a chance to meet with if we have that breakfast session with the business owners, then that's something else to bring forward. But the housing piece, I think you'd be largely going over old ground. And you might have some members of council who kind of will nod their heads and zone out a little bit. Whereas if you had something fresh to report from a breakfast session, as well as commenting on housing, I think that might be helpful.
Yeah. I think including that housing was mentioned and how important it was to them can be very brief and just reinforces, I think, what council's been hearing. And then, yeah, if we cover new ground and if there's more things that come up at this breakfast meeting or something. But it for sure needs to be mentioned, but I don't think it needs to be dwelled on and explored thoroughly.
Yeah, I see this as kind of part of I think we have a role to communicate from businesses to the council, and also to communicate back to businesses, because everyone came there and gave their time and sat down and gave all these ideas. They want to hear that they didn't just disappear into the ether, that there was something there. And I think this comes to, when we get to talking about committees in a few minutes, I think communication is one of those things that could be either a subcommittee or a project team that is doing that is communicating, networking between businesses and between council and businesses, back and forth. I think that's a really key role, and maybe this would fall under that. Perhaps that working. So perhaps we should shelve this conversation for a little bit until we get to the subject of subcommittees. That makes sense. Okay.
But thank you for making this happen. I spent some time going through it because I heard, as you've heard, very similar things, but we've heard it also with the Violent Conversations. We've heard it with the research that you guys did. So there's a cluster of things that are very key to this island. Some of those things are, actually, I think they limit our ability to be as, they use the word prosperous as possible. And I thought that we could take some of this and we could match it with some of the other things we know and come up with more of an action items that EDC can take on some specific activities. Housing is just a universal issue.
Yeah.
And you're right, councils, how many times can you tell people that something they know? But if we could find 4 or 5 items in here, cluster them together, that turn into action items, things that we can do as we move forward as a committee, that might be possible.
Okay.
Would that make sense to the council?
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay.
Strong presentation for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so should we hold that thought till we
Yes,
get onto the
yes,
subcommittees?
yes.
Yeah. Right.
So any more work on this then would be that. Okay, next conversation.
Yeah, let's come to that. Business breakfast hasn't happened yet. The letter did go out to the business. This was related to the food trucks and the idea of having food trucks, which the restaurant businesses, it was the miscommunication really, they got their wrong end of the stick. But we thought it was an opportunity for us to meet with restaurant businesses who responded and explain to them that we were on their side and trying to be helpful, not, and also listen to them about what could we do to help them. But the dates didn't work. The
And
dates we
the
had
most
so far.
popular date, the chair and the council member couldn't
Yeah.
attend, so.
So I think we'll arrange that. We should do another doodle poll to find a date after the spring break.
So I'll pull, not the spring break.
Well, I would,
I'd poll now
Yeah.
or after spring.
yeah, because my diary's booked up for the next 3 weeks.
Okay, so, for middle of April?
Yeah.
Because otherwise, they're going to be, it's sort of an invitation that's hanging out there, and I think
Yeah.
closing that loop would be smart.
And we are heading towards, like, in
Busy.
May, it's gonna start to get busy
Yeah.
for them, and I think it's gonna be
And
challenging.
also I think it would be helpful to do the breakfast. We had 9:30 on the invite, and I think that's too late for a breakfast meeting.
Yeah.
We're already on there.
8:30? Okay.
Or 8 o'clock. yeah.
I'd actually, as much as I hate to say this, I think 8 o'clock is,
Yeah,
Yeah.
no later really.
yes.
So then, this is about them feeling heard. So then I ran into one of them in the general store, and he said, Fridays and Wednesdays, like Mondays is our day. And it just felt like, oh, that's that. Yeah. But then.
As
no,
in
yeah,
Monday's their
yeah.
day off? So
Yeah.
that's when we should go, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Mondays are out for me, but
Yeah.
but somebody else can, we can other people can be there.
We have 2 vice chairs
I
now.
think, well, yeah, when we turned it around as, well, it's part of a work day, enjoy your day off going to the beach, this could be part,
Yeah.
so
Well,
it
maybe
would have been there, just wanted to bring that.
Maybe try 8 a.m. on a Wednesday,
Mhm.
might be
Okay.
doable. See if it works.
Or can we get 2 dates, Monday and a Wednesday or something like that?
Yeah, that'd be a good
Could
idea.
we, yeah, I know it's too bad, but if we get a resounding yes for Monday,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
feels like we should probably
Okay.
embrace that, yeah.
Yes.
Also, if we do 2 dates, it gives people who can't make one date the opportunity to
Yeah.
come to the second.
Yeah,
We just have to be prepared to host.
yeah.
Are we thinking of
Two
hosting
breakfasts.
2, or are we just gonna give maybe a few?
Well, if it's split or something, maybe we could do the 2.
Yeah, because we offered 3 dates last time, I think, in the last doodle poll. So yeah, if we offer 2 or 3 options,
Yes,
see if there's a resounding yes to one, and yeah, maybe
Yeah.
we discuss it
Yes.
by email if if it's evenly split. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't mind having
I would
2.
offer even four times, do 2 separate weeks,
Yeah.
to Monday and Wednesday.
there's also the issue of optics. It shows that we're flexible,
Yeah,
and I think people will appreciate
yeah,
that.
cool. All right, great, next up. Is there any budget issue on that? Are we paying for the breakfast or is that?
It's very fun, yeah, we're glad.
Cool. Subcommittee reports, there's none because we haven't been meeting.
Could I just get to something that, I mean, the branding, this isn't the branding committee, but the branding is, you've probably seen, it's been carried through with the community recreation brochure, and the community profile has gone into production at Rethink, and they're going to be doing it over the next month and a bit. So by May, we will have a rebranded community profile as well, and that's one of our community projects.
Cool.
The target of the community profile would be people who are interested in perhaps moving or doing business on Bowen?
Yeah, and another audience is government and agencies that the municipality might have a relationship with.
Right.
So it's primarily an external audience, whereas the newcomer guide is an internal audience.
And so you said it'd be ready by May?
It's supposed to be, final printing is slated for May the 14th.
And who's writing this?
This is written already.
It is?
It's
Okay.
it's an update of the profile that was done in 2016.
Okay,
And Heather Pretty
Yes.
did the work on the update,
Okay.
so all done.
Okay, good. So before we just start talking about the subcommittees, I wonder if we should ask Daniel if he can be here by, say, 10:40, because that would give us a little bit more time with him. We've only got half an hour, and that doesn't seem like enough time to me. Maybe even, 10:35.
Okay,
Can you just ask him?
just
Oh,
done.
good. Right, so subcommittee reports. Subcommittees, I mean, I think we don't really, let's assume we don't have any subcommittees.
Yeah.
I think I would like to suggest that there's two ways of doing this thing. You could either have sort of project-based teams as we need to do things, or else we could have subcommittees that have a particular role in kind of ongoing. The only thing is I think in the past we've been sort of we've really stuck to, they've clung to the idea that we have to have this subcommittee and they have to be doing something all the time, and we've been sort of quite rigid about it. I suggest that even if we form subcommittees, that we review them every 6 months and say, look, is this committee working? Are we getting stuff done? Is there really a role, or should we better reallocate to something else? Because I think the essence of the community economic development idea is flexibility and teamwork and kind of doing what we can in a guerrilla fashion as opposed to, massive big things. Does that make sense? So I'll just throw it open. Any ideas on what committee, do we want project teams or subcommittees, and if so, which one do we want?
Well, I really liked what you mentioned a little while ago. I made a note of it, is perhaps thinking of a subcommittee or team, whatever we want to call them, that would be all about engagement. So like setting up these meetings with different, like I'm thinking we're engaging with restaurant owners now.
Yeah.
Maybe do we set up and to engage with construction businesses? Do we set up to engage with the B&B owners? Like we could actually start setting up these regular meetings with the various different subsections of business on Bowen. And then I kind of like the idea that the business summit at the end of the year is like, okay, now everybody comes together and like talks about it. So I mean, I think that could be a useful subcommittee taking on those engagement processes, whatever it might be.
Like a business liaison.
Yeah, and what you were saying is kind of keeping that connection, and their focus being that connection between business via the EDC to council and back, from council via the EDC to business kind of thing, and keeping that connection and communication
So
flow happening.
it's kind of a networking, communication.
Yeah, understanding what their needs are, engaging with them, taking the things from council that we get asked to disseminate to them, getting the information back. So really, I see it as a communication engagement kind of subcommittee.
And I think the word networking is appropriate, because I think that's a lot of the value that business owners get out of business associations, and business associations on Bowen aren't really existing in any kind of formal way. So,
Yeah.
so filling that void of that engagement,
Creating some networking
networking
opportunities as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Any other ideas?
We spoke about a formal liaison with tourism.
Yeah.
And I think that's important in and by itself because it's such a significant part of our local economy. And it bites both ways. It creates stress on the community and community resources sometimes in the peak months. And we've had this conversation for 5 years now about how do we move into shoulder seasons? How do we spread out and increase the tourism dollars? And I also think we need to think in terms of dollars. How do we maximize the amount of revenue spent here per person who wanders over to see our beautiful island? As someone put it the other day, it's better to have 100 people spend $1,000 than 1,000 people spend $100. So it's about target marketing, it's about being strategic, it's about working that tourism and the community have the same points of view, same vision, same hopes. So.
Cool.
Edward, how do you envision like a monthly meeting of this
The subcommittee getting together with tourism.
I think, I do actually. I think this is critical. This is critical. We've been playing with this issue for how many years? 5, 4? And, we still haven't moved the needle that much.
Well, we're going to come on to tourism Bowen Island in a few
Okay.
minutes as well, but I think one bit of good news is I think we can say is that Maureen
So,
has applied to join the EDC, and she's also been,
good.
Is she on the tourism board?
she's on tourism Bowen Island.
Yeah, I think she's vice chair.
Is she
So,
was, definitely.
Also
can we
that.
say it? Can't say it? We just said it on video.
Ordinarily, the names of applicants are not
Oh, right.
stated publicly.
Oh, I see. Sorry. I'm bad. Thanks, Maureen. Stephanie's doing daggers.
So,
One moment.
clearly, the need to have somebody representing tourism Bowen Island's been, on our committee's been really important. So, in addition to that though, so if we achieve that, when you're talking about this, what would you see this role of that committee? I mean, just having conversations about tourism?
Well, just
community
talking
design?
about how do we integrate tourism, better integrate tourism into the local economy, but the total good of the economy. There was just anecdotal evidence last year of people wandering the streets on Saturday nights with kids looking for a place to eat.
Starving
Yeah.
and no place
No,
to
I know.
sleep.
I know.
Sad tale.
But years ago when customer satisfaction first hit North America, there was an incredible piece of research that was strongly suggested that if you go to a place, you have a great experience, you might tell someone. If you have a bad experience, you're going to tell a dozen, 5 or something. And I think we have a wonderful opportunity here, and we need to make sure that we keep this as a really quality, wonderful place to visit.
Certainly, and so I guess I think because we are moving to this new model of the community economic development, we could actually frame it in those terms.
Yes.
And that's why we are reaching out
Yes.
to tourism at this point.
Yes.
A
Good
nice
point.
way of connecting.
And I think another candidate for a team or subcommittee would be this whole issue of the community economic development, doing the research, finding out what does it mean, coming up with proposals that we could action, and sort of guiding the bigger committee on what it needs to know about community economic development and what the implications are for later in the year when we go to council.
So that's that education piece.
That education piece. That might be we might just call it an education research subcommittee. By the way, have we lost Mike?
Oh, are you there, Mark?
This is pause.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm still here.
Good.
I kind of feel like I'd like to take 2 minutes and reflect on some thoughts on the economic development plan in particular. Because, when I'm looking at our work plan, in a lot of ways, our work plan sort of identifies potential committees, if we were going to have committees. But I did, and I just want to take the first minute to say that I went to the breakfast meeting yesterday in West Van held by the Chamber of Commerce, where Stefan and the CAO presented the economic development plan for West Vancouver. And we'd seen a copy of it here, I think, at our last meeting as well.
And he will be at our next.
And he's coming to our next meeting. So what I got out of that meeting, though, and reflecting on something that Maureen has brought up many times, I think, is that there isn't an economic development plan piece in our OCP. And so in a couple ways, in particular in our next item, looking at this zoning and land use that been referred to us, without an economic development plan as part of our OCP, we're kind of floundering, I think. The discussions that I've had with people around Lot 1 and rezoning and so on without this piece. So we've got it in our work plan to work towards that, and we have November, December to develop a community economic development plan for 2019 based on a model. And we talked about the potential of, you know, whether that needs more staff or how that would look and so on. Anyway, I think if we were going to have any formal committee, what it really comes down to is if we had a community economic development committee of some sort, like it's not necessarily the whole group here, a group that would be willing to meet outside of our regular sessions. And I'm thinking that we just don't have the capacity as a volunteer group to develop a community economic development plan. But we could look at the models that are available, including West Van, which is fresh and just been done, and they've accessed a lot of resources and consulted with their local business community and so on, and looked at land use planning, and that's definitely a part of what they're doing with their economic development plan. And they put community and they put resiliency in the key points in the front of their plan, which really are the same key points that we're trying to put in front of a plan that we envision. So I think there is something to be learned there. West Van isn't Bowen, but they are a bedroom community. They have a very small portion of their land base is zoned for commercial. So we're going to have some interesting discussions, I think, after our next meeting. But I think maybe what we could do is start to tackle the terms of reference for what a community economic development plan is in more depth in a subcommittee.
I think those are really valuable comments, and one thing I might suggest for the committee is that you actually read the sections in the OCP that relate to the economy. They're pretty cursory. They start with things like, as at the time this OCP update was written, no comprehensive study had been undertaken regarding the composition of the local economy and local employment. And there's a section that deals with what a municipality could do, and that would be through this committee in part. And then there's another section that relates to what the municipality can do in cooperation with other organizations. And as far as an economic development plan is concerned, it says work with the Chamber of Commerce, which no longer exists, to complete an economic development plan. So there's a great big gap in the OCP. We're coming up to 7 years with that official community plan, so we're due for either an update or a new OCP in the next council term. So our timing working on community economic development within this committee this year, our timing is really good.
That's a tangible goal.
Would you take the lead on that?
So are you saying that we should have this community economic development subcommittee, or it sounded a lot like the learning and research?
Yeah, it's a lot of what we've talked about, like that we are going to do through our meetings and events. But I guess I'm thinking along the lines of getting a terms of reference written out for what, moving towards a community. Like how can it happen? How can we actually get a community, an economic development plan, a community economic development plan in our OCP, like specifically moving towards that?
Can I just, so isn't there, rather than a committee, isn't there like a task force or a work group or something that's more specific? And just as you were saying before, John, it's a project-based. So it's like, okay, go do research, find this, make terms of reference, and then we probably need to put out an RFP for professionals to then give us pricing for our development plan and get that done in the next 6 months. So it's very project-based, and it's whatever, I think the term is task force or something like that. That's like you have one thing to do it in this, and then you're done. So not a committee that's ongoing.
Right.
And again, if we refer to the work plan, what we've got in there is that this kind of work would be done in November, December, and there's 4,000 in the budget, which probably is not going to be sufficient for an RFP, bringing in some sort of professional, but we could certainly do some of the preliminary work to
Good
that
work.
amount of money.
Yeah.
But there's a whole section before we get to that, Maureen, where we're basically supposed to be learning about it.
Exactly.
And, yeah, all right.
Well, no, that's what I was thinking as well, is should that be joined in some way? We're going through that process of determining what community economic development means while drawing up something that might be entered into the OCP
Right.
as
Right.
one group.
Right, okay, so, well,
I guess I don't even want to go into more depth. That's why I'm keeping it sort of at terms of reference, like level. But one of the key strategy pillars I could see, like within that terms of reference, would be exactly what it says the Chamber of Commerce was going to do, which was, to analyze the local economy.
Yeah.
can I suggest this, because we need to get on to Daniel in a second, but how about we ask, for the next meeting, if we can come up with a terms of reference of what these subcommittees might do, or these task forces might do for the next 6 months. That, we just do like a one-page thing of what we're hoping to get done, and then we can choose who goes on those committees. People can say, well, that really interests me, or that doesn't interest me, and then we can form the committees next time.
That's a good idea.
Makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah. So would anybody like to take on? We need 3 people who want to take on these 3 bits. Like Rod, would you take on that?
I think to begin with, I could take on the economic development plan, whatever, however.
Yeah, just to define what you would like, what you would like to get done, and perhaps the skills that you would need, and what you'd be doing.
Yeah.
Ed, would you do the tourism thing?
Yes, are we going to have that meeting?
Yes, that's going to happen.
Yes, okay. What will come out of that meeting, I'll present here.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Would somebody else like to do Robin, would you want to do the communications, engagement, networking
Yeah.
thing?
Was there not a fourth one, which was research, education?
Oh, yes, research and
housing?
education.
Yeah.
So,
We've only got 9
Well,
people. We've only got 9 people, so we don't want to have too many.
Well, can I ask, last year we had discussed, and Maureen mentioned it in there, a business survey, and trying to understand where the dollars are flowing, what businesses are operating in the community. Is this the place for this, and do we want to go there? Do we want to start
that
that?
So
is that
go
part
under
of your
Ross.
plan?
Yeah, I
I
think-
think you
I
would be
think
doing that as
this
part
is-
of your
That would be-
CD plan.
Like actual number of businesses? Okay,
Yeah, because
that would be
would
all
have to
inclusive
consider-
of that.
I think so.
Okay.
You'd have to consider all of that in developing that plan, so all that work would have to.
And that would also be included, some research and learning would be in that thing too.
Mhm.
So we're not doing branding anymore.
I'll write a one-pager on the branding of how I think we need to move forward.
Okay.
Because we've left an awful lot on the table that I think can inform a number of things. It can inform our logging issue. It can inform our tourism issue. It can inform our education issue.
Okay, so we're thinking of tourism, networking and communications, and engagement, and then community economic development, research, and planning. Is that right?
So who's that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
And branding.
Yes.
Possibly 4 task forces. Let's not call them subcommittees at this point.
Yes.
And then if we bring that to the meeting next time, we can all choose which ones we want to be involved in. Make sense?
no BRE, it feels strange, but.
Yeah. Oh, let it go.
Yeah.
Go for it. Just,
Engagement.
get some,
Yeah,
get some.
And I sort of feel like BRE is kind of all of us,
Yes.
Yeah.
right? That's the
what
whole
it
me.
is. Okay. Cool.
Great.
Good.
Bring on Daniel.
Thanks, Daniel. Sorry for waiting.
Hi everybody. Sorry, unfortunately I have to sign off a little bit early today, but it was a great first meeting, and looking forward to the next one.
Thank you,
Okay.
Maya.
Thanks, thank you, bye.
Very much.
So is everyone okay if this goes just goes through till 20, say 20 past 11. And then we
Yeah,
have
I
10
think
minutes
the
just to
time-
do the very quick summaries at the
Yeah,
end.
because I have to leave at 11:30.
We're all going to be done by 11:30.
Perfect.
So maybe 11:15. Daniel, so.
Take it away. So thank you for having me back. I think I've met everyone, but I'm Daniel Martin, the planner with Bowen Island, and so I'm here today again talking about Lot 1. So this is a rezoning application that council has initiated on the community lands. So I came in January to the last meeting here. So I just have a brief presentation that'll give some of the background. So some of it's the same as last time, just a refresher. And I think I'm moving forward.
Is that working?
Oh, I need to get that. Sorry.
The video is good when I wasn't here on a January meeting, but good for the meeting, but you can't see the screen. It's too bad you couldn't get the slides up somewhere, but
I think when we post them, I think they get put as part of the agenda.
Yeah.
So there is a
After.
PDF usually.
Oh, so you
depending on your
could
computer
follow
setup, you
along
can have
with
the
that.
video there, and then you can kind of follow them yourself.
Good idea.
usually.
You have to guess where I am on the slides, I
Yeah.
think, but
Yeah.
yeah.
it's hard on the phone.
Yeah.
On the phone, yes.
I could listen. I could lay on the couch and listen, but it's
Okay.
just to see
For
them.
those online, what page are we on our
Yeah.
agenda?
So my letter is on page 43.
Okay, thank you.
So that's when I have a little referral letter, and then I have the latest council report and the bylaws and all that, the background
Okay.
stuff. So lot 1 is located along Mount Gardner Road. So this is, actually I'll go to the next one here. This is Bix as you come off the ferry, and area 1, that is this area in orange, so you pass Bird on your right, lot 1 continues the whole way along. Or if you go along Carter Road, and you pass the Bowen Children's Center and IPS and Belterra, and then you then go down Carter Road to come back onto Mount Gardner. This is all lot 1. It's about 20 acres in size. So in terms of zoning, it's zoned rural residential 1, and in our OCP it's designated as rural. So I don't go over here, but previously when I came, I gave the background that council, through the Mayor's Standing Committee for Community Lands, had given direction for a rezoning application to place it into different areas. So in terms of the updates, so February 13th, council had a committee of the whole and then a council meeting, and at that meeting they gave first reading to the bylaws as amended. So they made a series of amendments. So the full set of motions that they made is on page 44 and 45 of your package, but I'll just give you a highlight of the different changes. So in area 1, which is that largest area, sort of called the light industrial area, they made changes to reduce the maximum size, they made changes to development permit guidelines. They amended it by moving the western boundary of it further from the creek and further from the trail that runs down behind the Children's Center. And they included dwelling as an accessory use. So previously, live-work units had been a primary use, and residential wasn't permitted other than that, and so they included that dwelling as an accessory use. Area 2 is the area that backs onto Belterra, essentially. So they made some changes to the setbacks in there. They decreased the lot coverage to encourage more clustering of units. They removed the option of a detached dwelling and just had it as attached. So again, try to focus more on more clustered units. And previously, Area 2 had a maximum dwelling size of 115 square meters. So that's 1,200 square feet. And then what council did instead is they increased that maximum size to 1,500 square feet, but they instead put a maximum average size. So that's to give it, so they don't all, whereas not all 1,200 square feet, but some could be bigger and some would be smaller, but the overall building area would remain the same. And then Area 4 was the one that had been proposed as a guest house use. And so the EDC had some really helpful comments about sort of the viability of that area. But council also received feedback from both the Islands Trust and the ALC, so the Agricultural Land Commission, about the process of trying to remove that from the agricultural land reserve. And so based on that feedback, council decided that they weren't going to pursue an exclusion application to the ALR, that they would change it to simply be a single-family home use and uses that are permitted within the ALR. Leaving open the option that council could still in the future apply to exclude it and open up uses, but they didn't want that to be essentially that would hold up the entire process or potentially make it fail based
So the
on.
whole section could be sold to an individual to build a house.
Mhm. So area 4, yeah. So this is then,
That's 1 acre, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not a.
so that's this area at the top. So then this is the change to that area 1 boundary is essentially to move it out to here. So the trail comes down the creek and here, and there's a water line that runs along here. So to move the boundary just to the edge of that water line. So then area 1 and the uses remain the same as in what you'd seen previously, except that as we mentioned,
Daniel, can I
yes.
just keep
Yeah.
going back to the,
Yeah.
to the previous slide?
Yep.
So area 1 is not the piece that's contiguous to the gas station and that kind of thing.
The gas station is right here.
So why would the industrial park not be down in area 3? Is that?
Yeah. So council's identified area 3 as future use. The reality is in terms of area 3, as it comes onto Carter Road, becomes steep. So there'd probably be, there's probably a bench behind where the works yard is now. You could access, and there's probably a bench in, again, sort of just up from the gas station. There'd be a bench as well, but it would be more limited. So council looked at sort of this larger area 1 as the larger development.
So nothing's being done with area 3 right now?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's been talk in the past too about, do we need to expand the works yard or whatever future use, but it's simply been
Nothing's been happening on area 2, it's just area 1 and 1.
So area 2 then is the proposed for the 20 housing units.
Right.
And so they tweaked it slightly. Yeah. Yeah.
Accessory use, what does that mean?
So accessory use in our land use bylaw means that it's essentially secondary to.
So does that mean that if there was a building built, it still says residential only above,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So dwelling is residential, right?
Yeah.
And so how does that change?
The main use is light industrial, but
Yeah.
But you're allowed,
some of
but
that is a dwelling.
from the beginning, it was allowed to have residential above. Like
So
that was the
before, what
idea.
was allowed was live work units.
Oh, I see.
So that would be a unit that had a residential component and a, like an artisan, I forget exactly how we've defined it, but some sort of artisan use. So somebody
Right.
would have a studio and they would have a living unit above it as part of the same unit.
Right.
And that would have been permitted, but not standalone residential units.
So does this mean that the whole thing could be made into a residential bottom and top?
So the bottom would still have to be commercial, so we still have a requirement residential floor area is on the 2nd story.
Right.
And the bylaw says that it can't exceed the amount of floor area for other non-residential uses. So you could have a building where the ground floor is commercial.
The entire ground
So it could be
floor.
any of the principal uses, so be it artisan industry or manufacturing or just retail or office.
Yeah.
And the entire 2nd floor could be residential, so the floor area would be the same, it wouldn't exceed, it would be on the 2nd story.
So how does that change by saying accessory uses dwelling?
So that's saying if it was a principal use, and I guess we also got rid of this requirement on the 2nd story, then you could see a standalone residential building. So in,
Right.
like in Snug Cove into the village commercial zone, we allow dwelling as a principal use. So that's why, there's a house, we allow detached dwelling, so you can have a house, you could build an apartment building in Snug Cove,
Right.
or you could build commercial with.
So by saying this, it means that the whole building can't be
Yeah,
residential?
Yeah.
it's protecting the use
Yeah.
of industrial and commercial and everything like that. Yeah. Like
And
it's-
sir, when they say 1,000 square meters, that would be, if you had a industrial and residential, it would be
The total-
500
Yeah.
square meters on the bottom, 500 on top.
Yeah, or if you went 3 stories, like if you, for whatever reason, had, retail, and then you had an office 2nd floor, and then you had a 3rd story that's commercial, or residential, whatever, the total building. So for reference, that's about the same size as the pub building. Like I think the new pub building is 970 square meters of floor area. I mean, it's different because it's more stacked up. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what the buildings at Artisan Square are like, but it's a similar scale, right? Or maybe a little
Yeah,
bigger.
they're a little bigger. Like I tried to do some comparison of some of the artisan, and they're a little smaller. Most of them are 3 stories instead of 2 as well. So
Yeah.
it depends if somebody built a 1 story, it'd be quite big. And if you went 4 stories, well, the footprint's going to be smaller for the same floor area.
But you could have, that could be a 6,000 square feet of residential or whatever the conversion
Yeah.
is from
Yeah.
meters to
Yeah.
feet. Could be quite large on top.
Yeah, and I haven't quite figured out or worked through the permutations. If somebody did a live-work principal use of the building, that's permitted, and you could have residential accessory. So if somebody got creative with it, it could end up with actually more residential, quite likely. It's
Like
said
2
if it-
floors of residential or something, or?
Yeah, I mean, you could anyways if you had, if you had two floors of commercial, you'd end up, you would have to match your areas and you'd have it above, or if you had a big commercial ground floor, you could go 2 stories of residential that isn't the full floor plate.
Right.
But you know,
And you'd
half
still
of
be
the
in
building.
compliance.
And you'd still be in compliance, yeah.
But one of the things I think from our committee's point of view that I like about it, and it depends if we agree that that's the right
Yeah.
place for light industrial and commercial, is that the way they've described dwelling as an accessory use protects that commercial and light industrial. Because if they take that out, it's certainly possible that it could be all residential, because that might be the most valuable use for a developer, right? Whereas by restricting it, it's emphasizing you have to put in commercial and industrial there and protecting that for that use. Whether we agree with that or not, that's what I'm getting from this as the way that it's written. Yeah, so I'm not sure, I still haven't decided myself if that's the best thing or not, but I think from an economic development committee standpoint, that's one thing for us to consider.
Okay.
It would be good to see it too one day if you want to, if we could get a tour as a group.
Oh,
Right,
for
go
sure.
and walk around it, yeah.
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 We're actually meeting this afternoon with one of our councillors. We plan to do a series of scheduled walkabouts essentially for the community. We're advertised. So after first reading, I've been doing the rounds of the committees. I'll be doing open houses and doing more neighborhood meeting. But part of what we want to do is these neighborhood walkabouts. And the other thing that we've actually scheduled for June 9th and 10th is a community visioning workshop. We're still working out the details, but for all of the community lands. So we want to do all of those pieces to sort of then bring the full package back for council before we bring any amendments or anything like that.
That's a good idea.
What's an indoor recreational facility? And it's
Ping pong room.
Yeah, think about a squash court, batting cage.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Probably,
That's
yeah.
like, have you ever seen Bounce in?
Oh, trampoline.
Trampoline park.
Trampolines, ball
Okay.
pit, I guess.
Yeah.
We have another.
So why is auto repair specifically excluded?
Excluded because of concerns at the time of ground contamination.
So, I mean, there could be other potential things, like if I want to open a paint store there,
Yeah.
that would potentially have as much ground contamination as an automotive
Yeah.
place, I would think.
Well, I think I
So
remember
why-
reading internal use, right?
Yeah.
So I think I could see how automotive would spread out into the yard with vehicles
Yeah.
and parts and
Yeah.
Okay.
it might be.
And it's not mandatory for them to put in dwelling, because somebody could
Yep.
just build an industrial commercial building if they chose to.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Because just putting on my architect's hat, there's code issues about having different uses, right?
Mhm.
So like, you generally can't, I don't think you can have residential with an automotive shop. I think
It's not allowed.
I'm
Yeah, it's
pretty
definitely
sure it's
like
not
some of
allowed.
these,
Yeah.
you know, and I run into this, and like even with the distillery, we went through whole permutations of
Right.
this. We permit things in our zoning to be together. We say, sure, you can
Right.
do this, and you can have residential above. But if you then try to build it, suddenly you've got massive code implications.
Daniel, was this kind of usage that you've got there, is this kind of the sort of standard thing that you would find in Function Junction, say in Whistler, that kind of thing?
So when, I think one of the biggest challenges with this bylaw has been light industrial, and people view it differently, and then how different communities almost encode that in their bylaws is very different. Or bigger places that have, a bigger range of zones would have a range of light industrial zones. And they say, well, you're in LI2 versus LI4 or something. And that we allow, like this, we've been calling this a light industrial zone, but what you could see developed is actually, if all that got developed was office, retail, and residential, we said, oh, here's the light industrial district. Well, it wouldn't be, like, it wouldn't functionally be any different, right? If all it is,
It could end up looking like Artisan Square.
yes. Yeah, so for that sense, it's like, I think the range covers what generally other, light industrial would be. But how it plays out, I think, is maybe still up in the air.
just I think I know the area.
Yeah.
It's a fairly dark area, isn't it? It doesn't get a lot of
I've heard it characterized that like it's a north facing.
Yes.
It does, you know, I'm going there this afternoon. It does actually get like light comes through the trees.
Yes.
It's not.
yeah.
I walked through
Yeah.
there this morning.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's lovely.
I
Okay.
drove
Yeah.
by last night and the sun was coming in at 5
Okay.
o'clock over the
Yeah.
mountain, but, yeah.
Like it's not the sunniest place on the boat, but it's actually quite nice, I think. And
Okay.
especially if you had, you know, if you're a 2-story or 3-story building, I think you're getting as much light as most
Okay.
places. Yeah.
That's a very interesting delineation because as you walk in, like the tip where the trail currently goes
Yeah.
in along between Carter Road, or not Carter Road,
Yeah.
but Mount Gardner Road and
Yeah.
Grafton Road, so it's not actually part of the area. So what is
Mhm.
that still part of, whose land is that?
Let's see if I can find this little lot. So there's this little lot down in here that's actually municipal owned.
Okay.
The trail itself crosses into Bix, actually on the road, right away. It's about in here.
Yeah,
And then the trail that you currently walk pretty much skirts the southern boundary of here.
Mhm.
So it doesn't actually enter, like if you walk that trail between
The children's
center
center,
and
yeah.
the school, you don't actually cross onto lot 1.
and is that
Yeah.
trail all on municipal land right now?
So this is municipally owned. The gas station and then the Artisan Square common property, we have a trail easement across the trails.
Now, when you say the gas station, where the gas station
Yes.
was cleared and proposed,
Yeah.
but not.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, no gas station, but where that private lot is. There's
Yeah.
one private lot.
So that's a private lot, and then the next one's a private lot.
So this one's, yeah, the Artisan Square common property. This then is the common property for the Bowen Children's Center and the lot across the street that the municipality owns. So there's a 2-lot strata here with a common property. So it's jointly owned by the municipality and the Bowen Children's Center. And there is a trail easement as well for it along the southern boundary. And then Bowen Children's Center, and there's a trail easement across the Bowen Children's Center property as well. This trail that then comes down,
More or less along the creek.
yeah, sort of just out from the creek, but there's no current trail easement for that, and that's why part of the movement is to move Area 1 boundary so that it's not proposed to be
Right.
developed.
Cool.
So I guess one of my things, because you were sort of, I went back to your 3 questions you asked
Yeah,
us,
yeah.
is do these changes address our comments? And I'm looking at I'm looking at
Yeah.
page 49, our 4 comments that were sent, which is, we strongly support light industrial uses. We have concerns about Area 1 not proving viable for storage and warehousing. We have concerns regarding road access to Area 1 and its proximity to the school, and we encourage consideration of expanding Lot 4. And I feel like that Lot 4 one's been addressed, like, and you heard our
Right,
feedback, because
yeah.
I agree, I don't think an 8-unit inn was viable, so we can strike that one. But I think what comes up for me is, I also agree that we need light industrial uses for storage, for warehousing, because that's what I hear just anecdotally from trades and construction people that I'm talking to, is, you know, that they're basically, it's private garages and stuff that they're struggling to use and everything. So I think there is a strong use, but my concern is, an agreement with what was said here last, when this was discussed, is Area 1, I think is going to become more like Artisan Square, which is lovely, but it's going to be retail, it's going to be artists, it's going to be residential, because of the shape of the land and the cost and the proximity to the code and stuff. I don't know that it's the right spot, and I don't know that it would be economically, like, that anybody was gonna invest and build a mini storage place right there. Whereas I think there are other spots on the island that are more suitable to that. So, I'm not sure that this addresses those concerns for light industrial use. Yeah, and I don't know how to phrase that, or how you phrase that feedback or whatever, but, I think I've seen other meetings where Maureen has suggested other ways of possibly getting, or Maureen and others on council suggesting ways of getting light industrial on the island, and I think I would strongly support those avenues to explore. Yeah.
In fact, it seems to have gone the other way almost, because it's now, my understanding is that there's more encouragement to have dwellings in.
Yeah.
So it's actually, you're actually moving away from really promoting light industrial towards more, you know, doing another artisan square.
Yeah.
And do we need another artisan square?
Yeah.
I mean, do we have is there more demand for retail shops? I I don't know.
Well, you
that's
see, this is just the economic development research and
Yeah.
plan piece, because we don't have those guiding policies out of that to be able to evaluate this.
There's no formal needs assessment, we don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, so we don't know, do we need 20 units of warehousing and 5 units of retail, or do we need 5 units of warehousing and 20 units of retail?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
we don't have those numbers.
My
we don't
guess
have the
would
information.
be, given the proximity to the cove and the
Yeah.
lack of available land, that you could have light industrial, heavy industrial, business, retail, and it would all fill it. Like, there'd be enough demand, so it's trying to determine the best use. Sorry, can I ask one question, just in that, what you were describing there, Robin, the last sentence of part 4, the Economic Development Committee, and it says at the end, as EDC does not believe that an 8-bedroom accommodation option is too small to be viable.
Oh, yeah,
That
it's just a typo.
Fixed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that an 8 accommodation is too small to be viable.
Yeah, it would just be that the EDC believes that.
Believes, yeah, so
Oh,
it's not
okay.
that does it, the EDC
Yeah.
believes. Yeah, it was just a typo which was addressed later, but.
Because earlier, or in the meeting, you were talking about a 4, wasn't there?
So what's proposed now is essentially a single-family home, which would allow, like any single-family home lot on Bowen can have up to 4 guest bedrooms as a bed and breakfast. And so it's just saying that's what is, and that's permitted in the ALR, so it would be like an SR2 lot that can have a house and it can have guest bedrooms as a bed and breakfast within, but the focus would be essentially it's just a single-family lot.
Just coming back to Robin's point, I wonder if it could be, you said you weren't quite sure how to put it, would, that EDC has concerns regarding the sustainability of light industrial use on Area 1 and Lot 1. Would that capture what we're getting?
I think it's more like the viability, not necessarily even sustainability. Like, I'm just thinking if given the zoning as it is now, which I think I'm in agreement with, I don't, you never know, but I don't think it's gonna lend itself, because residential, from my limited knowledge of development, is so highly valued that I don't think anyone is going to develop that space or take some of it, depending on how it's sold, if it's sold as one big thing or chopped up. I find like somebody's gonna build a warehouse or something there, they probably won't, because I think it's more economic return to build residential, but I could be wrong, I'm
It
not
seems,
sure.
yeah, it seems like there's a confusion of 2 goals here. We want to get light industrial space, and then there's this big demand for housing, and the 2 are getting mixed up, and I think you're going to end up with unsatisfactory answers for both in the sense that, because I don't think it's going to work for light industrial, because who's going to use that? It's going to be another artisan square, which is not light industrial.
I guess in the council discussions on this, which were really lengthy, and we spent the better part of 8 hours going through this. What came to the council table was concern about the lack of dwellings as a accessory use. There was just a lot of concern about allowing for the potential for more housing on that site, because what had happened with Artisan Square, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Daniel, what had happened with Artisan Square was that the sort of live-work concept there didn't prove in the long term to be all that viable. You ended up with people renting, and you ended up with people operating the commercial part of the so-called live-work type unit. So this was one way of recognizing that might happen. You can't just, as it stands now, you can't just go in there and build residential though. I mean, that it's been retained that is going to be secondary to light industrial use. So
Why not, separate the 2? Why not divide the area even and have part of it for small housing and part of it for
well,
light
that's feedback
industrial?
that you could give through the rental, and that can be taken up to council. And again, coming back to Robin's point, concerns about the long-term viability of light industrial use.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah, and so I mean, one thing that maybe we could suggest is, and it just depends how everybody else feels, I think this would be my personal suggestion, is for council to continue to pursue other alternatives to find light industrial on Bowen. So what I think the suggestion is, like, basically open the door and put it out to everybody to say, hey, if you have land, personally, private land, that you think is appropriate to it, come to us and we'll work with you, kind of thing. And I think that would be the way to go, because I think there's better places on the island. If we looked at the whole island, said, where would we, if we could choose anywhere, where would we have light industrial? I would say I would not pick this spot.
North Van.
Right? Well, but there's other spots, like there's in the middle where there's Eddie's Pit, and there's Early Bird, and the nursery, and all those things. Like, maybe that's more, but like I think there's other spots on the island, and if we open up, so that would be my personal suggestion. I don't know if everybody else agrees, that council continue to pursue other options to find appropriate light industrial on the island. That's like a one thing.
The lack of formal needs assessment, one of the things that you'll note Daniel was directed to do is to host a meeting with local contractors, and that's on the agenda, and that will move forward with some information on needs. And the point that Robin was making about the invitation to people to surface and say, this would be a potential use for my land, was also discussed at the council table. So that's in the discussion.
I think one thing that could happen here is that there's the, yes, true light industrial may not prove that viable here. You know, if you want to have a storage business, is that the place to put it? But you could get, for example, if we got the internet, high-speed internet, you could attract knowledge workers to the island, and that could be a great place where you could have a business hub. And
co-working
that sort of
space,
thing.
absolutely.
Co-working space.
So that would be allowed, like
That
you
would
could
be-
take the main floor and make it into an office space,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then have residents above.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in a way, in that sense, if that was the reality, this would cover it pretty well, right? Because then you could have a real nice mixture of people living and working in that area.
So you call it commercial / residential?
Well, I think in a way the rezoning suggested is wide enough. Is this the case? It's wide enough that it's kind of going to be up to the market to decide how it evolves, which is probably just as well, because we can't predict what the need is really.
One of you makes a good point. I think you're both saying the same thing. Light industrial doesn't quite describe the options here. And I think that, to me, that's always been a sticking point, because one, we don't know what that means, and we don't know if there's a need for it. And, I think that if we just, commercial and residential use, and a broader, at least a broader
It
definition.
would really help with the communication, I think.
Yes.
Because I think when people hear light industrial, they get,
Yes.
get everyone gets worried.
So could we include like artists in there? So like commercial and artisan use, something like that? Because I think artisan speaks differently than industrial.
Yes.
Well, we're talking about just the communication of it, just the word. We're just talking about the label really.
Yeah.
Because we want to leave the light industrial possibility there, I think.
Sure.
So maybe you could just give some thoughts to kind of like the name of the operation.
Yeah.
So is this light industrial zoning, is it more or less restrictive for commercial activities than other commercial zonings on Bowen? Like, so for instance, in the village, I guess that's the most lenient for commercial development that we have on Bowen.
Yeah. So I think what isn't permitted that is in Stone Cove, I think, is restaurants and general services. And I'm trying to think off the top what else is permitted in the village commercial that isn't. I think that might be about it.
Basically restaurants.
Yeah.
And tourist accommodation is permitted in.
Right, and so it's not here. Overnight guest accommodation is permitted in a couple places in the Cove, like the marina.
But not everywhere. You couldn't just.
Is it everywhere?
You might.
It might be everywhere. Actually, it's not Cove. Yeah, it is a permitted thing.
Okay.
So if I'm getting that, then the main, like, other than the fact that, how the residential part of it is structured because of it's specifically laid out in there. So the main restriction would be on overnight accommodation. But you wouldn't be restricted from having a restaurant here, would you? In the light industrial, you wouldn't be allowed?
So you can't have a restaurant.
So if you had a bakery,
Coffee shop.
you couldn't serve muffins out in front of your bakery?
You can have retail, and that would include like a coffee shop.
Retail.
But we define restaurant, and they don't have it, but it's like where you're sitting down to serve food.
I think some of us are thinking of that Function Junction. Which,
Yeah.
the only reason I've gone in there is to get a cinnamon bun, but
Yeah.
Well,
after a night at Whistler.
if somebody wanted to do a kitchen to make jam, to
Yeah.
market
Yes.
jam, Bowen Island jam, so that would be allowed.
That would be allowed. I think we specifically say like food production is permitted.
Right.
Yeah.
But they're selling it there as well. So
Yeah.
there's a counter
And
top,
that's
you can
fine.
get
And I would
some
imagine,
bread and jam and.
I would imagine it as an accessory of that. You could have people then sitting down to eat it,
Right.
what you've produced. I would think is fine, but.
Okay, so we can, just to summarize, because we've got 5 minutes more. So the first point that we said last time still stands, right? We still strongly support the idea of zoning. The second point, I think we still stands as well. We, sorry, which one were we talking about? The three, we were asking.
It's on page 49, is
49.
that what we're looking at,
Oh,
the
yeah.
EDC
On page
suggestions?
43, I quote to the,
We still have that concern, and I think we
Or
still,
449.
Yeah, so it's both. It's
Yeah.
the
Oh,
same.
yeah.
It's the same.
Oh,
So-
there's the other wording.
so let's just go through the points. The EDC strongly supports the idea of zoning for light industrial uses, including storage and warehousing, artisanal cottage industry, as there is a need in the community. We still agree that. To better integrate area along the Snug Cove, the ED supports adding restaurants as a permitted area. That's not being proposed.
No,
And I don't
but
think we
do we
feel
agree that
confident.
we would like to see a cafe there, not necessarily a restaurant? Is that fair, or do we still want to include restaurant?
Actually, I want to go, go, I'm sorry.
I'd like to make sure a coffee shop could be there. That's kind of my
Yeah.
only concern.
Absolutely.
It doesn't necessarily have to be a formal restaurant, but as long as a coffee shop and a cafe could be there,
Yeah,
I think there needs to be an opportunity to create that kind of business or.
yeah.
yeah.
In the statement before, as there is a need in the community, we don't know that.
As we think there is.
As
we-
perceived.
Well,
as we-
It's perceived.
And-
From anecdotal evidence, I think we do know that, but we don't formally know that from strong scientific data.
Why don't we say, as anecdotally we believe?
Like I said,
Does that work for
as
you?
perceived.
There is a perceived need in the
As a
community.
perceived need,
Yeah,
yes.
that's
Okay.
fair.
Second point, the EDC is concerned that the area will not provide viable for storage and warehousing uses and other light industrial things, I think, because of the cost of the location and higher value of competing uses. It recommends that an alternative location for that and light industrial uses, not just storage, be still pursued by council, so we still agree that. The ED is concerned regarding.
Oh, sorry, John, to interrupt. Could we add to that we agree with council, like the proposals brought up at council meetings, to engage with
Yes.
the landowners
Yes.
to explore those options?
Yeah. The third one is the ED has concerns regarding road access in area one. We haven't had a chance to discuss that, but I think we still have that concern. Because it's near this, just because of the proximity to the school.
Mm.
And that's not, I don't know if that's been addressed yet, Daniel.
No, I mean, I think discussed it some, but not really addressed. I would say.
Okay. Well, I saw there was some stuff in there from the trail, Parks and Trails
Yeah.
committee saying, there should be, as long as there's, cycle paths and
Yeah.
footways for the kids and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Could be, as long as there's safety around.
yeah.
Did you say psychopath?
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Yeah.
Psycho or
For the
psycho?
children?
You know,
We don't want those
Both,
over
yeah,
there.
know.
Cyclopaths, no
I heard
We encourage the consideration of expanding.
I think
That's
that's a
on the
moot
second.
point. It's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so are we good?
One question,
Yeah.
the question of light industrial versus commercial / retail. Do we, how do we feel about the term light industrial as a descriptor of this?
Well, I think, that would be another point we could add is that we suggest that consideration be given to changing the name of the project
Sure.
to be
Yeah.
more.
Well, to be more accurate description of what is
Yes.
actually being
Yes.
proposed, because light
Yes.
industrial does not
Yes.
make you think of cafes
No, it
and
doesn't.
shops.
It's not actually, well, it's
Jam
probably,
making is
Yeah.
that industrial?
it's probably not going to result
It's an industry.
in light industrial. It's probably going to result in another kind of
Commercial and
town
residential.
square
Yeah.
with maybe some artisanal, workshops and, which would be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the term industrial has raised a lot of
Yeah.
people's backs
Yeah.
and gotten them up and,
Well, reading the comments, you know.
Yeah.
it's-
Mhm.
well, like industrial.
It's not that we're saying that light industrial should be taken out, we're just suggesting, talking about how we talk about this.
Yes.
Yeah. And sort of, yeah, stuff can be to, like the designation of light industrial, because that's in the OCP bylaws where it's designated as light industrial. So you're saying you'd like to change that to reflect what's proposed, in essence. Like,
We're not saying that we want to take out the right to do it,
Yeah.
light industrial,
Yeah.
if we want it.
It's
but you think the
expanded.
name of it is not accurate.
Because I think what we're looking at is sort of a Granville Island type of model, right, where you could get, isn't it?
To some extent, I mean, you couldn't get a cement plant, but other than that, you could have the people building brooms and
Right.
Yeah.
So you
Distillery.
see,
Metal
see,
workshop
and
yeah.
see in Function Junction, and this, I think this is erroneous to compare it to Function Junction, because in Function Junction, there is a cement plant.
and it's probably 10 times the size.
And it's
of
much
this.
bigger.
Yes.
yeah.
And my personal experience of Function Junction from 1994 to now, living there in the mid-90s, and working in an office in Function Junction at that time, it was much smaller than it is now, and it was very much like what I think we're imagining this might turn into when it started. But then it expanded, and there was room to expand. And so I don't know if that was planned from the beginning or not. I don't know about the planning process, but I know that this will never have the opportunity to
Yeah.
expand into what Function Junction has become.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Well,
just-
sorry, you mentioned Granville Island, and I still come back to this idea of a village market or where agriculture, if there is agriculture
Yeah.
being grown up in this area, somewhere where people can sell it.
Could we have a market here? You could
On
have-
that agriculture land?
You can have a market in Area 1, I think it's a retail.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So retail use, and I think we allow,
So if someone
Could
wanted
imagine.
to build an arcade and have multiple commercial shops in it and a
Maybe.
market space, they could do that.
Night market.
yeah, we would just say that's retail.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. I think we're out of time. Did you get what you wanted?
I did, thank you.
Can I make one a suggestion? The nomenclature has been a slight barrier to my aging brain. We have light one, lot one,
yeah.
area one, so 1, 2, I mean, why can't we call it lot one, area A, B, C, or D, or lot 1.1, lot 1.2? I mean, just,
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
Is there anything that prohibits that?
I mean, so basically the area is the lot.
yes.
I mean, it hasn't been consistent, like when we first bought the surplus lands, now the community lands, at various points they were parcels A, B, C, and at some points they were lot 1, 2, 3. And sometimes they were labeled differently or numbered in different orders or whatever. And this seems to have been settled, like lot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we're fairly consistent with. Then the sub areas comes up in a land use bylaw, we have CD zones, comprehensive development zones, that have areas within them. And that we've been generally consistent in that we have a CD zone, it'll have areas, and then it'll have sub areas. So it's like Cowan Point has area 9A and 9B and 9C. So if we had a sub area within one. But I mean, where it's different is that like, we don't have to necessarily, like I've been using this because this is the bylaw, so the bylaw would have these areas. But that doesn't mean going forward we have to use the bylaw names. Like Artisan Square is a CD zone that has areas within it, but people don't say, well, gee, now I'm in area 2. So I think, yeah, you're right, you could separate them too. It's like the legal zoning of it is area 1, but we don't have to say this is area 1.
Okay.
They can get something.
I just remember the first
Yeah.
presentation, people
Yeah.
sitting there going.
For sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You can't change it now, though, I'm just figuring it out.
There is a subcommittee, a joint subcommittee of the APC and the Standing Committee that's working on public communication information about the community lands. And we're well aware of the issue that people have in identifying easily the different areas. Your tongue
Yeah.
tips over it.
Okay,
Thank
thanks.
you very
May I
much.
have one quick question? When you engage with the construction industry,
Yeah.
would it be possible or appropriate for some of the EDC to be there with them? I don't know, like, and
Yeah.
I don't wanna like overtake
Yeah.
the meeting, but I think it could be interesting
Listen,
opportunity for us to, even if it's just to listen
Yeah.
and hear that subsection of the economy and talk to those, you know, engage
Yeah.
with them. So maybe if we could request
We
invitation
keep that in
or,
mind. Yeah, I think we're still trying to figure out how exactly it's going to look, and I think it'll probably be it'll partly be like a survey or something, and partly a meeting. And,
okay.
That's a good idea, though.
Depending on
Yeah.
time, I'd have to
Yeah.
either like involve the EDC in crafting that, or looking over responses, or some sort of involvement. I think is.
Yeah,
if
I think
you're
we'd
looking-
appreciate that.
If you're involving the business community in consultations, that's where I think we could be.
Yeah, I think that's well nicely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Danny.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, we've got 7 minutes to go. Cheryl, Wendy, are you still there?
Oh, I'm Erin Cho, yes, we are still here.
So you have to sit through all that, sorry.
Did you like the pictures?
No, no worries, that's part and parcel of the business of the meeting, no worries.
Okay, well maybe, I don't know if you have anything to contribute, you have about 2 minutes in terms of like updates and from the province. Anything you'd like to tell us about?
Sure, it's Cheryl here, and I know there was reference in the minutes to the rural BC engagement that's been in progress, and I understand from, I believe, Councillor Nicholson, that there was a letter sent to Minister Donaldson related to a request for consideration of Bowen Island as rural within the next iteration of the rural strategy, and potentially then within the next the eligibility criteria for the next rural dividend program, or whatever that program will be. So the engagement for rural dividend officially ended at I think it was extended 1 week, so March the 7th. So one of our sister branches is in the progress of analyzing the data in terms of the information that was provided throughout British Columbia, and we'll be putting that into a rural strategy framework. And so when we're at that stage and ready to share, we'll be sure Wendy and I will bring that back to Bowen for consideration, or just to review it with you. And also, folks may have noticed that there have been a number of changes as the budget has come out with some Crown corporations. The BC Innovation Council is now Innovate BC, and we'll have an expanded mandate. So we're getting an internal update on that on April the 3rd. So Wendy and I will be able to share some learnings about that at the next meeting related to Innovate BC, and also the Canada BC Jobs Grant, the federal provincial agreement related to that funding program. There will be there's a new agreement which will start April 1st, and that impacts training opportunities for businesses. And there will be a refresh on there will be some changes to the criteria for that program as well, which I think will be beneficial for folks. And so we'll again bring that information to the next meeting. A lot of the end of fiscal for the provincial government is March 31st, so that's why a number of the new programs and initiatives start April 1st. And that's also the case, I know I heard today, some comments related to agriculture, and the Canadian Agricultural Partnership between, again, another agreement between the federal government and the provincial government, will start again on April 1st. And that will be what was called Growing Forward 1 and Growing Forward 2. And most of those, at least historically, those funds have been, go through Ministry of Agriculture to the Investment Agriculture Foundation with multiple funding envelopes that they administer. And so that could be something for consideration again is moving forward. So I know Wendy and I are very interested in reviewing in more detail with you the priorities for Bowen Island and how we can assist and align with provincial resources moving forward. I really want to acknowledge the work that Bowen Island has done related to advocacy for inclusion within the rural BC, because again that could assist EDC related to some dollars to help with capacity on the implementation side.
Cool. Thank you very much indeed. We look forward to seeing you perhaps at the next meeting or the one after that.
Sounds good.
And if there's anything we can do we're conscious we want to use your time is valuable. If there's any way that we can do anything about the way the meeting is structured so that you're coming in at a certain time or only hearing the bits that you want to hear, we're happy to try and adjust the agenda to suit you. Just let Steph know, and she could do that. Just so that you're using your time well.
Sounds good, but the content is all informative, so.
Okay, good.
Appreciate that.
Well, thank you for listening. Yeah, thank you. Tourism Bowen Island.
They provided written information on page 123, and that, we received that email as well.
Okay.
And can I just mention project between toilets and Bowen Island, Bowen Lodge by the Sea and the Arts Council, and possibly some yoga studios and other organizations. So it just speaks to, Edward, you were mentioning the idea of going off peak season in terms of drawing people to the island. So they're putting together packages, tour packages for a weekend stay, targeted mostly at women between the ages of 40 and 60. The lodge is going to be doing the marketing, the accommodation, the registrations, and they're going to be promoting weekends with a focus on health and wellness, art and creativity, and then just community celebration, which would probably tie into our Light Up Bowen, so maybe on that weekend. So, yeah, just nice stuff happening.
And we're also arranging a small meeting with Tourism Bowen Island, with a couple of representatives from Tourism Bowen Island, just explore opportunities for us to work more closely together. So I've been, I think that's going to happen in April.
So that's members of EDC are meeting with members of Tourism Bowen Island.
Yeah. Arts Council.
Actually, I just want to thank Cheryl McClay for you referring us to the program, Community Resilience Through Arts and Culture. And even though we were not initially eligible as a rural community that's in Metro Vancouver, we did receive an exception and have applied for that program. So thanks for.
Excellent. That's great news. Thanks for pursuing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well done, Good job. Council.
We've been busy. We had public hearing and a committee of the whole and a council meeting earlier this week. The public hearing dealt with some amendments to the dog bylaw. We had a presentation at the council meeting on presentation on logging. There'll be a follow-up committee of the whole that goes into that in more detail. We've launched, since we last met, we've launched the Bowen Housing Speaker Series, and the first one was a review of work to date on housing on the island, and then the second we had an off-island guest, Jada Bassey from City Spaces, talking about municipal tools for affordable housing in rural communities, and both of them I think were valuable. They were live streamed and they're video recorded. So if you want to go back and take a look at what was discussed. The next session that we've got coming up in this series is a local solutions workshop that deals with detached secondary suites. So there's an invitation to community members who might be interested in exploring what's required in building a detached secondary suite. And they can come and speak with the planner, with the building inspector, and with someone who's recently built a detached secondary suite under the new bylaw that was passed last year. In the coming week, we've got a public hearing for the Grafton Lakelands rezoning. We had to go back to second reading because of the Agricultural Land Commission not permitting the exclusion and the inclusion that was in the earlier version of this. So it's a public hearing, and hopefully we'll proceed forward shortly thereafter.
Thank you, Mark. And staff, unless there's something urgent on staff, we'll skip that one. And we'll skip the critique if you don't mind.
Yeah.
We're done?
We're done.
Thank you.
Karen? Good meeting, folks. I'm glad to be back.
Thank you for joining us, Cheryl.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Robin, you have your meeting tomorrow?
So I'll check the warrant on Monday.
Away, but I
What are
would
you
like
checking
to
on
have
Monday?
it.